So the NIHS has been established by a cabinet decree number 28 as a national institution mandated to spearhead, regulate, and organize professional development for the health workforce with a particular emphasis on specialty training. Our vision is to develop a highly qualified health workforce able to support the health system and promote health and well-being. Our mission is to set and maintain a high professional standards towards strengthening the health workforce capacity and promoting health. Our strategic objective is building up and strengthening our institutional governance, strengthening the specialty programs for health professions, developing a robust accreditation system for specialty training, and developing a sustaining and effective system for trainee assessment. Our role is to set standards for institutional and specialty program accreditation. We also evaluate and approve the healthcare institution to deliver specialty training. We accredit the institution, the training institution, as well as program. We also approve the residency and fellowship programs, not only for medical and surgical, but also for allied health and nursing. We do conduct specialized professional examination, issue certification for higher health specialties like board exam and fellowship. We approve the continuous professional development, and we also establish a national registry for all health specialists and qualifications. So I'll be talking about where we are so far from the governance point of view, specialty program accreditation and assessment. And just to let you know, if you have any question, please feel free to type it on the Q&A, and we'll basically try to answer it toward the end of the webinar. We will also, during the webinar, we'll send a link on the chat for you to fill in your information in order to send you the certificate. Now, where we are. In terms of governance, we have a board of directors chaired by His Excellency Minister of Education and members of high-profile board of directors from health and educational authorities. We have also advisory committee, who are a leading committee composed of representatives from all health authorities. We have also a central assessment committee that develop the assessment procedures, criteria, and give recommendation on the passing mark. We have the Central Accreditation Committee who establish the accreditation procedures and provide recommendation related to accreditation. And this is very, very important because we hear different point of view, and Dr. Sheikh will elaborate on this. And the decision of giving an accreditation is based on a committee, and it's not based on only the surveyor or the Secretary General. We also have a Council of Scientific Affairs, who are basically the authority formed by chairs of specialty scientific committees and academic professionals. And then we have the specialized scientific committees. So where we are, so far we have almost 33 scientific committees that cover most of the residency and fellowship program in UAE. But what we added also dental specialty programs, endodontics, orthodontics, pediatrics dentistry, periodontology, and prosthodontics. And we also added allied health, like clinical pharmacy, and hopefully nursing will come soon. So the job of the scientific committee, the first task is to set standards for the accreditation requirement related to their specialty. And we always start of where everyone ended. So we take the best practice internationally as a benchmark, and then we contextualize it to our local practice. We for sure benefited from the residency experience in UAE. We have excellent programs with a very rich experience, and that all will be reviewed by members of the scientific committees and then taken up to the Council of Scientific Affairs for approval. So people are asking why accreditation is important. It's all about, number one, quality assurance process that aligned with the expected standards. We also would like to ensure that our graduates are fit for practice. And at the end is the public and the community safety. So we started drafting the institutional accreditation standards, which has 5 key domains: the governance to ensure that there's a designated institutional official, there are the right committee, they do report to the CEO of the hospital, there's a right training environments for the trainees, a clear policies and procedures that protect the residents and fellow, well-trained faculty, and a continuous improvement. So that would be the first step. The second step is going to a program accreditation. And within the program, we have, again, worked together with the Council of Scientific Affairs and the different scientific committees to draft a common program information guidelines, which basically has all the common program requirements in one document, and then is the specialty program requirement, and we do have the forms and the rubrics, and I'll give you an idea if you in a minute by visiting our website. Now, within our website, again, we have the e-services, and this is a very good opportunity to call for accreditation surveyors, and I'm pretty sure you did receive this email, which basically show you how to apply for accreditation surveyors. So if you allow me, I'm just going to go to our website. I hope, let's see, hope it's clear now. So this is our website. Let me just, yep. And I'd like you to have some time by visiting our accreditation requirements, where you'll find more information about the institutional accreditation requirement, the general or common program accreditation requirements, and then the requirements for every specialty. I will also like you to have a look at our assessment bylaw, training bylaw, and within the e-services, here where you could apply as a surveyors. It's a very simple procedures that should not take more than 10 minutes from your time. Now, to know more again about and how to apply for accreditation, we'll have a very good time where Dr. Sheikh will spend time going through the different forms available to apply for a program accreditation. We also have a very nice video illustrating how to apply for accreditation. Okay, so I'll stop in here, and I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Sheikh Badr, who is a policy development expert at the National Institute for Health Specialty, to talk more about our accreditation system. Aisha, would you like to share the screen?
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. I welcome all participants, and I can see a good number of participants in this workshop, and that's really encouraging. So I will be taking you through focus on the accreditation system that's adopted by the National Institute for Health Specialties. Thank you, Aisha. I think Dr. Muhammad has already provided an overview around accreditation, and all of us know that the accreditation is a process of a formal evaluation of a program or an institution or a system against a defined set of standards, and it is essentially to be done by an external body. So it differs from the internal quality assurance processes where the internal organizational structure is involved. But in accreditation, the body that is responsible should be an external, an autonomous body for the purpose of quality assurance and development. So also, as Dr. Muhammad has introduced, so the accreditation is becoming more and more important globally. You may know that the main drive for undergraduate medical education accreditation has been brought by the ECFMG statement in USA about the necessity of graduating from an accredited medical school. And I think due to COVID-19, this has been a little bit delayed, but it's gaining accelerating momentum. Accreditation also in residency education and in postgraduate medical education in general. There are diverse systems globally and also practices that are emerging, and accreditation is linked to competency-based education and competency frameworks. Next. So Dr. Muhammad has already gone over this, the benefits of accreditation. I'm sure all of us feel the usefulness, the importance of accreditation, in particular in improving quality of education itself and quality of graduates. Next. So if we would like to talk about an accreditation system, we should be thinking of the main pillars, like 4 pillars for accreditation. You need an accrediting body. In our case, it is the National Institute for Health Specialties, Emirati board. And also you need accreditees, institutions that receive accreditation, whether being hospitals or other health facilities. And you would essentially need standards for accreditation, and also you require to establish a process for accreditation. So these are the pillars of the system. And for NIHS accreditation standards, of course, we have the triology of standards. 3 main standards, which includes the institutional, which is a general one for the institution as a whole, and the second one is a general or common program, which is also overarching for programs. And we have the specialty specific requirements, which are essentially getting into the detailed requirements of each specialties. And all of these standards are available on our website. And we have developed actually these standards based on a process that is informed by the international experience, looking into different experiences and also contextualizing to the country context, and then benefiting from the experience of residency training in this country, and also enriched by wide consultation with those who are involved. And finally, our standards are approved by our governance structures, whether being the Council of Scientific Affairs or the Board of Directors. Next. So this has already been mentioned, but it is essentially to reiterate that our structure of the standards structure is composed of very important dimensions, including governance in terms of how the institution or the program is governed and managed, and then the educational environment, which is essential, and of course the human resources, whether being the trainees or the trainers, they are central to the success of the residency education. And we have a dimension of continuous improvement, where we usually stress innovation and change towards the positive aspect. Our approach to measuring in terms of applying accreditation standards, we emphasize a wide and balanced coverage of relevant domains. So it's a triangulated set of standards that cover the 5 domains that I just mentioned. And also we emphasize minimum requirements. This would allow room for excellence. So we have minimum set of requirements, but whoever would like to excel beyond that, this is actually encouraged, even in our standards. We use largely objective and measurable dimensions, and we developed rubrics actually to be more objective and to specifically capture the situation. Also, we allow room for institutional autonomy and innovation. We are not restrictive. Our requirements are generally indicative of how to set things and providing general guidelines, but there is room for the institutions and the programs to adapt and to innovate. Our standards also involve qualitative as well as quantitative dimensions. So in fact, the qualitative dimension of accreditation itself is a substantial one. That's why we capitalize on accreditation surveyors, because a trained surveyor and a competent surveyor is actually an essential asset for any accreditation system. That's why we focus on selecting and training surveyors and ensuring that they are delivering in a competent. We have generally 3 levels in scaling the situation of complying with the standards, whether these standards are met or partially met or unmet. And we have also a column for remarks where if any single standard is not applicable, we can also indicate. Next. So the application of standards adopt the comprehensive approach I just mentioned, and then there is related processes and procedures. We will later be taking you through these. As I mentioned, our main tool in accreditation is the human tool, which is accreditation surveyor. And we have the quantitative as well as qualitative dimensions, and we have the rubrics to standardize our experience. And then we usually learn from the feedback. And in this presentation, I will also later be reflecting with you on the feedback on our experience so far, because we have done both institutional and program level accreditation, and we have got some reflections around those experiences. Next. So I'm not sure, Wafa, are you with us? Okay, so I will take you through program accreditation requirements and forms, and actually this stipulates our processes for accrediting different programs, and as shown here, these are our current functioning programs. Next. So we have developed specific forms to support the application, and we have indicated to you here key areas. Of course, you can browse the website and go over the details of the forms, but here we generally indicate the general areas. We have the sponsoring institution, the participating sites, the recruitment and resources. These are all very important for us. The personnel, like the program director, the faculty and program coordinator, and of course residents in terms of their appointments, eligibility requirements, and the number as indicated by the capacity. And we have the educational program itself in terms of defining the core competencies and the curriculum, organization, and also resident and faculty evaluation and the clinical experience. So these are some, highlighted some of the main dimensions that we usually focus on during the accreditation. Next. So we have, as Dr. Muhammad alluded to, the Common Program Information Form and the Specialty Program Information Form and the Specialty Program Rubrics. So the forms, you will find those on the websites, and these are usually filled during the application. And for rubrics, rubrics are actually essential for self-evaluation for institutions and programs. So when you fill the rubrics, you would probably know where your institution or program actually stands in terms of fulfilling the requirements. And in terms of the evidence, also in addition to the form and different forms, we seek evidence through documentation and through the site visit on different dimensions. These are some of the dimensions that we ask for, like the overall educational goals of the program, for example, program accreditation letters, the curriculum, the committees like the clinical competency committee and program evaluation committee, program letters of agreements, memoranda of understanding between different hospitals to complement the training experience. This is an important dimension for us. And we also ask for a number of policies and documentation that is important for the governance of training itself. For instance, the policy for eligibility and selection of residents, policy on duty hours, policy on supervision, and the rest. So these are just examples, but all these policies are elaborated in our website. Next. So for the program information form, we have different dimensions like formal didactic sessions, by academic year, patient population data, residency program schedule. Next. In terms of the evidence of specialty program rubrics, the rubrics cover a number of important dimensions. These are only examples, like the program personnel and resources. I have already alluded to this. The resident appointments, educational program, the scholarly activities, and evidence about these scholarly activities, the resident evaluation and promotion, the work of the committees, the duty hours, and resident supervision. So these are all essential dimensions for the quality of training. Now coming to how to conduct a program accreditation site visit, this is one of the areas that very much concerns our current and potential accreditation surveyors. So this has already been mentioned, concepts of accreditation standards, and the accreditation system. Next. So this is like a helicopter view of our process of accreditation. You visit our website, you fill the application forms, you upload the form and the self-assessment rubrics, and then you submit the application. And this has been shown in the video projected by Dr. Muhammad. Then internally in the institute, we review the application, of course, and we then, based on the review, we select accreditation surveyors, and there are certain standards for selecting accreditation surveyors. We'll be going over this later. And then the surveyors would conduct the site visit, and then which is usually a one-day visit, and then they prepare and submit the technical report. And then this report goes to the central accreditation committee within the institute that reviews the report and put a recommendation to the Secretary General to issue the final accreditation, whether to accredit or not to accredit. And as Dr. Muhammad said, as you can see, this process is quite thorough and consultative, and it's not a decision by one person or even one committee. Next. So we usually adopt the approach of having a survey team. So we don't capitalize on a single surveyor. Usually we select between 2 and 3 surveyors, and essentially they come from outside the institution. And we have a careful process to observe the conflict of interest and avoidance of any such occasion. And for the programs, there should be at least one subject matter expert when reviewing the programs. The main function of the accreditation surveyors is to verify the compliance of the institution or the program with our standards. And as I told you, is rating mostly and reflecting on whether the institution has met or not the accreditation standards. Next. So this is just to show that for competencies, we usually know that there are competencies that relates to the subject matter itself, is medicine and medical specialties, and there are competencies that relates to generic areas like professionalism and communication and other competencies. So it's a balanced overview of the competencies. Next. Next slide. So the survey journey or output, of course, it is essential to realize that the survey provides a cross-sectional assessment of an institution or a program. That's why internationally the accreditation systems are now moving more and more towards the concept of continuous accreditation. Continuous accreditation means establishing a monitoring system to follow up on the institution and the program, because whatever we do in the survey visit, it is a cross visit. It's very important, but it's a point in time. That's why we also, in our bylaws, we adopt this dimension of continuous accreditation by reporting back and creating a data system that will enable us to follow on institutions for the purpose of quality enhancement. So the report that comes from the surveyors, as I said, will be used by the Central Assessment Committee for the purpose of making a decision ultimately. Next. For the surveyors, they need to be familiar with, on one side, the documentations within the National Institute for Health Specialties. That's why we encourage you as surveyors to visit our website regularly and acquaint yourself with our documentation in terms of the governance structure, in terms of our accreditation standards, the different set of standards and forms that are all available on our website. On the side of the institution or program, you also need to be familiar with the submission. So each institution or program would provide us with a submission, and we share that submission, including all documentation, with the accreditation surveyors, who are expected to go and familiarize themselves with the submitted documents before contemplating on the site. Next. So these are sort of only general guidelines. I'm sure any surveyor would essentially know that there are some personal qualities that are actually needed when you become a surveyor, in terms of the ability to manage meetings and also representing the NIHS and behaving in a collegial way, and also observing different aspects related to the visited institution, and also avoiding any instances of conflict of interest or vested interest. And this is essential, actually. Also, the introduction when we are at the site, and how to seek information and how to start meetings. I'm sure these are all personal qualities that are essentially available among all of us. Next. So again, these are general dimensions related to, for example, asking open-ended questions wherever possible, to invite more information, because the accreditation visit is essentially a qualitative endeavor. That's why we need to be open in discussion, and we need to be promoting the response from the side of the institution. Also, confidentiality is essential in all the steps, including the site visit. We observe anonymity and confidentiality in our meetings, and we also listen carefully to institutions, and also observe other dimensions, like being careful not to imply any certain line of decision to the institution, and also sticking to the schedule and starting the meeting, and asking about areas of strengths and areas for improvement. So it's actually a collegial visit, where we try essentially to help the institution to develop and meet the standards, while we also observe equality for the sake of ensuring production of qualified and competent graduates. Next. For the preparations for the site visit, we have certain requirements from institutions, and in fact, these are all straightforward requirements in terms of providing venue for the surveyors to work during their visit, and also preparation of files and all documents. And then when we are visiting an institution for institutional accreditation, we require the DIO to be present all through the day with the survey team. And in case of the program accreditation, we require the program director to be available during the visit. And this is quite obvious because you need to get information every now and then, and you need to ensure the presence of the program director. Also, we notify those who are involved in the qualitative interviews, like faculty, some representatives of faculty and residents. And also we need immediate access to relevant buildings and places for an inspection during the tour. These are simple things, but sometimes when they are not arranged in advance, sometimes challenges arises, and as experience has shown us, and also international experience. Next. This is sort of a typical day program for the accreditation visit, starting in the morning and ending in the evening with different dimensions, starting with the meeting the program director for an overview meeting, and then reviewing the documents, and then meeting with representatives or sample of residents and fellows and faculty, and also meeting the head of the department. In case of institutional accreditation, we meet also the director of the hospital or the facility, the senior management, and then having a break, and after that touring the facility. And of course, the tour is very important because it reflects on some dimensions that are essential to be observed during the site visit. And then we meet also with the DIO, even if we are going to the program accreditation. And then surveyors would stay in a closed meeting to prepare their survey report. And finally, they provide a debrief to the program director. The debriefing actually involves not in any way communicating the decision or the recommendation of the survey team, but in terms of inquiring about remaining things that are not clear, and maybe asking for additional documents or additional evidence, and discussing in general around these issues. Next. So the reasons, this has already been, I mean, this is important. The reasons for the program survey: we survey programs either for new accreditation, new application, or re-accreditation, conditional accreditation. When we give a decision of a conditional accreditation, conditional means there are conditions that are to be met. So we do follow-up visits to ensure that these conditions are satisfied. And also visits come for other purposes, like warning for freezing, freezing follow-up, withdrawal of accreditation, maintenance of accreditation, and citation or other purposes. That's what I said about the concept of continuous accreditation. It's not a one-off process, it's a continuous process. Next. And this is the goal of accreditation, as we all know. Next. These are just just general tips. Next. Now, this is very important. I would like to focus a bit on these slides because these comes from the reflection from our experience. We have so far done several institutional accreditation processes, including site visits, and also one program accreditation visit. So from what we observe, and this is very important for the current and potential accreditation surveyors to observe, we need to observe that the purpose of accreditation is developmental. Accreditation is not in any way policing or inspecting in a policing way. It's a developmental process. That's why in the National Institute for Health Specialties, we are keen to be open to different institutions and programs and to help them, support them to meet our standards. And this needs to be observed by our accreditation surveyors. Institutional accreditation differs from program accreditation, and we need to observe this. When we are going for institutional accreditation, we are going general in terms of ensuring that this institution is capable of hosting residency programs. But when we go for program accreditation, we go more into details. Specific program, trying to dissect or zoom in into a specific programs. It's very important for all of us to know that the quality and credibility of the Emirati board accreditation system is not judged by the failure rates. So if we have institutions that meet our standards, and we reach 100% success rate in our accreditation in this country, I think that's good. It not necessarily, it shouldn't be seen as a limitation. That's linked to the idea that the accreditation process is developmental, and we never say that all institutions are fulfilling our accreditation. That means our accreditation standards are not rigorous. No, that's not the case in accreditation. However, as accreditation surveyor, we ask you to be rigorous yet fair to the institution and to the program. And also, we capitalize very much on the insight of the surveyor. And this is very important to stress here. We have a lot of standards and different forms, but at the end of the day, we depend in a substantial manner on the surveyor as a human being and as a dynamic person. Because for you as a surveyor, being there, being inside the hospital and living the experience makes you having more insight into the situation. And you may observe things positive or negative that impinge on accreditation. That's why we capitalize on the comments from our accreditation surveyors. And the surveyors are not sent to hospitals just to fill forms and rubrics. Are sent also to provide their own reflection and their own feedback, which could be very useful for us. And as surveyors, you need to weigh the evidence. You need to triangulate and weigh the evidence in order to reach a conclusion. And I would like also to remind you that accreditation journey is quantitative as well as qualitative journey. So we use quantitative evidence, but also qualitative. Next. Triangulation is essential during our accreditation visits. And by triangulation, I mean you need to triangulate the data sources, for example. If you listen to something from a faculty member, you need to record that. If you listen to a concern, you need to record that concern, and you need to triangulate by asking, for example, residents the same question and to see their opinion, and by getting back to the program director and seeking his or her opinion, also asking the management in the hospital. So we never get an information, in particular when there is a concern from a single source. We need to triangulate. This is part of our quality assurance. There is the issue of protection to enhance transparency. This is very important because the last thing we would expect is that some faculty member or even a resident being punished because of being transparent with the survey team. And because we need to carefully observe this, we need to ensure anonymity and confidentiality. We meet separately with a group of residents, and we meet separately with a group of faculty, and we need to carefully observe not to disclose the names. But also for the National Institute for Health Specialty, there is also a need to follow up later and monitor whether there are some consequences that impinges on a certain member of that institution based on his or her opinions or reflections with the survey team. Also, we need to identify and encourage innovations. As I earlier said, the accreditation standards are not rigid and they allow for a room of change and innovation, and we need to encourage this. Also, the accreditation report is a team decision. This is essential, actually. If you go to an institution as 2 or 3 surveyors, then the National Institute would ultimately need you to provide us with a single report. If there are any disagreements between the surveyors, that should be discussed among them. But when they submit the report, they should submit a joint report. And then the other important aspect that we notice, it's highly desired to conclude your report by the end of the visit before you leave the facility. Because in some instances, we noticed that people who delayed the report, that created some problems in terms of getting delays, in terms of even getting into disagreements while people are away from each other. But when you are in a single room, before you leave the facility, make sure that you discuss thoroughly among you as surveyors and you come to a consensus and you submit your report. The report would go, as we mentioned, to the Central Assessment Accreditation Committee. So as surveyors, you don't have, you are not a decision maker, you recommend. And the Central Accreditation Committee would study the report, and they might accept the report completely, they might accept it partially, they might reject it. And they might ask you as surveyors or another team of surveyors to revisit the institute. That's all included in our bylaws. This is all meant to observe quality assurance. So the role of surveyors post decision, yes, after you submit your recommendation, we might get later on, after we get feedback from the institution, we might get back to the surveyors to seek their opinion about the submission from the. Next. So this is the final part, which is mainly about the documents that you are expected to review. Of course, the accreditation experience involves a wide set of documentation. And these documents need to be reviewed by the accreditation surveyors to ensure that they comply with the standards of the Emirati board. And we have different examples of this, including policies, including minutes of meetings, including curricular documents, and others. So this is, as you noticed in the day program for the surveyors, you have generous time to also go over the documents and see if there are any deficiencies. I think we are approaching the end. So also the minutes, this I mentioned. Next. curriculum is all mentioned. Next. These are all sort of details detailing the different dimensions that we are already these are also sort of details. We mentioned the meeting with the program director, which is very important, and this is specific guidelines for the meeting, and of course this the whole presentation will be shared with you, and you can get access. Next. Meeting with the head of department. Yes, next. Meeting with residents and fellows. Faculty. And then ending or exiting the survey visit. These are already mentioned. These are the decisions. These are included in our bylaws in the website. You can go thoroughly over them. But we have generally two sets of decisions in accreditation, either accredited or not accredited. And these are clear divisions. If the institution is not accredited, that's clear. But if it is accredited, then it could be either given full program or institutional accreditation for a period of 5 years. And it could also be initial accreditation for the programs that for the institutions that do not have residency experience with residency. We can give it for 2 years. And we have a conditional accreditation for 1 year. And we have some other decisions related to granting accreditation and relating to the fate of accreditation in terms of freezing accreditation or even withdrawing accreditation. And all those sorts of set of decisions emphasize the concept of monitoring and continuous accreditation for the purpose of ensuring quality. I think we are ending the presentation. And then I will leave it to Dr. Muhammad to see the section in terms of answers. If there are some questions, or if you allow Dr. Muhammad some people to speak, I don't know how you want to manage it. Thank you so much for listening to this rather long presentation, but I thought that it is essential to go over the details. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sheikh. There were many questions and answers, which I tried my best in the last hour answering them, but I'm also will be happy to allow anyone who would like to speak up and maybe ask the question. You could raise your hand. I'd like also to remind you that if you look at the chat, I have just sent in a link for basically the certificate application. So please click on this link. It would have a quick few questions evaluation on the program, as well as please type your details in order to get your certificate. Now, this is one of a very important first step to the journey of being a surveyor with the NIHS. And there were many questions during the last 1 hour. Many of them are related to who should be a surveyor and how can we apply. And again, on our website, as well on the chat, I added the criteria as well as the link. But if you have questions, and I see 3 people raising their hand, please let me allow you to talk. Dr. Saria. Go ahead, Doctor. Dr. Saria, unmute.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
بالغلط أعتقد it's by mistake I raised the hand.
ما علينا بنسمع صوتك دكتورة.
It was really an informative slides that has been shared. And we are looking forward to be part of the surveyor and for the site visit, inshallah.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Dr. Saria, she's chairing the Pediatric Scientific Committee, so she went through all the process of drafting the requirement for her specialty, and then next step is drafting the program information forms, the rubrics. Later on, we will be also mandating the entrustable professional activities and milestones. That will be coming next, inshallah, and there will be a webinar on this. Thank you, Dr. Saria.
Thank you.
Let me see anyone raising their hand. Dr. Haifa, I'll allow you here, allowed to talk. Go ahead, Dr. Haifa, unmute. Dr. Haifa Hannawi. You're raising your hand. Okay, maybe. And then I have Dr. Aida. You can unmute. Okay. Yes. Okay, Dr. Salman. Again, if you'd like to talk, you can just unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Salman.
Thank you so much. It was really insightful information, and I hope that I will be able to contribute significantly. I am from Sharjah University, Vice Dean of the Medical College. My question is related to surgery. You know, general surgery, then minimal invasive, laparoscopic, and robotic surgery. So, if we are in the surveyor team going to assess a surgery program in a hospital or in an institution, when we are definitely be going visiting the operating rooms as well. So what exactly do we need to assess there, like the quality of equipment as well, the instruments, the sterilization, or there are certain minimal standards that the applicants have to fulfill? Like, you know, in general surgery, we talk about laparoscopy and then of course robotic and some other generally which are related to the surgical instruments, the approaches and other stuff. So to which extent we should be evaluating this hospital or institution?
So, Dr. Salman, first of all, thank you. And if you allow me, I'll take you to the website, and I hope that you see the website now.
Yes.
Many people are asking questions of, well, related to their specialty and what are the requirements. So to make life easier for everyone, they could do the self-assessment. So you're talking about general surgery. Let me click on general surgery here. And it should show you the rubrics in a moment. Okay, so do you see it? And if you don't, I'll share it again because it's a Word document. Yes. So we developed this rubrics to make life easier for the program or for the applicant to know whether they're ready for the application. Now, if you look at this, it's basically we're summarizing the requirement in our rubrics, and you could do it yourself to know whether you are meeting or partially meeting or not meeting these requirements related to the program directors, related to the faculty, resources that you're talking about, assessment, residence appointment and curriculum, clinical experience, operation experience as well, scholarly activity, evaluations, promotion, and overall assessment. So for every specialty, we also, the scientific committee worked on developing these rubrics, which is really helpful to know more about our requirement and to do self-assessment before the application. And you, as a surveyor, this will be on your hand. You'll print it and take it with you, along with all the evidence to ensure that that program is meeting the requirement of the NIHS. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. This is quite a comprehensive form. One last thing from me. I might have missed it during the presentation. There is no meeting like this at the start with the institutional head. We go to the program director and to heads of department, faculty, and residents. Is that right?
Now, the institution head, we meet them during the institutional accreditation. So remember that we have institutional accreditation before program accreditation. During the institution accreditation, most of the time we're meeting the CEO and the CMO of the institution.
All right, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see if we have, I see many questions also typed there on the Q&A. So let me, Dr. Leila, she's having a question. Allowed to talk. So Dr. Leila, you can unmute, please, and speak up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this comprehensive, detailed explanation. I agree with Professor Salman. I just want a little bit more clarification when it comes to training surveyors for program-specific field visits. Being part and sitting on your surveyors committee, we do have, and you have been kind to train us on specific aspects of conducting an institutional accreditation site visit. Are you planning to do program-specific training for the surveyors soon, or you're going to depend on the same surveyors to conduct according to their specialty?
Well, Dr. Leila, a very good question. And this is what we were talking about with the team. And I do have the head and very good number of the scientific committees who are really happy to conduct special, I would say, orientation about their programs specifically. That could be neonatology, pediatrics, neurology, as well as general surgery. Because as you just mentioned, there are things that some of the new institutions and programs are not familiar with, including in how to fill the program information form. So we will be happy to conduct it as per request, but if we could also do a workshop. Most likely it will not be attended by many. If we do very specifically, let's say for neurology, the attendees would be probably quite few. But we could, again, arrange it as per request.
Perfect, thank you. My other question is, I put it in the Q&A and apparently you didn't understand what I was trying to imply to. If an institute per se is not accredited by any other governance body, like they are board or ACGME, how do you go about accrediting them, specifically programs that they don't have? For example, let's take surgery, like Professor Salman has mentioned. If this institute does not have a current program running for surgery, how do you go about that?
So we do have a good example, actually. We did have one of the hospitals, it's a semi-private hospital in Abu Dhabi, had no program. They did apply for accreditation. There were some missing documents, and we gave them 6 months to, again, change their organization structure and fill in some of the documents. And within 4 or 5 months, they were ready. They applied. They received the institution accreditation. Now they're working on their program accreditation forms. So this is a normal, and it's that someone—
So the agenda would actually change. So you won't meet with the program directors. You won't meet with the residents because they don't exist.
They don't exist, but most of the time, what they have is they do have the DIO, and they are planning, for example, that on that institution, they were planning of one specialty. They're into the OB-GYN, and so they're already having someone who will be taking care of the obstetric and gynecology. So they did appoint someone, but they have not yet started.
So the survey would run in a different perspective.
True, and something else, we will give them initial accreditation. So anyone who's ready new with no clear evidence of applying their policies, so they may say, yes, we do have, for example, a clinical competency committee, but we don't have evidence of menace. So most of the time we give them initial accreditation, which most of the time are a maximum of 2 years.
Yeah, thank you very much for your input.
Thank you, Dr. Leila. Let's see if we have any more questions from the participants. Okay,
Dr. Muhammad, if you allow me, I want to come in here and comment on maybe 2 questions.
Yes.
One question from Dr. Nabil regarding the surveyor's decision. So we said that the decision should be a collective decision. It's not a single person. And then whether he is asking whether to reach that decision through voting or consensus. So our policy is that the survey team should come up with one decision. And it is highly advised to base that decision on consensus. Discussing any sort of disagreement in viewpoints between the surveyors and settling those disagreements, if any. And if they need, if a member need more information, then during your, you are staying at the institution, you can ask for any clarification. You can ask the program director or those who are involved to provide clarifications to resolve any sort of uncertainty or lack of clarity. And we do very much encourage, and actually it is experience with the survey everywhere that people come up with consensus. But again, the principal requirement is to have a team decision and not a single person decision. And even when a surveyor comes to, for instance, one surveyor is usually selected to present in front of the Central Accreditation Committee. So that person should be presenting the consensus of the team, not his or her own views. And he is not, or she is not allowed to come up with a new conclusion. And that's part of our quality assurance for the survey team. In our experience and in the international experience, it's very rare to find a complete disagreement between surveyors, because the survey process and the site visit is structured. And there are some specific forms that enable you to get the information you like in a clear way. The second comment I would like to provide is around the difference between institutional and program accreditation. The institutional accreditation is overarching process, and it usually precedes the program accreditation. In our bylaw, the institution must first be accredited institutionally in order for it, being a hospital or another health facility, in order for it to host a program. So we cannot go and accredit a program in an institution that doesn't have institutional accreditation. So it comes first, and the institutional accreditation is a higher level function where we meet with the senior management in the institution to ensure that there is commitment towards residency training in general. But when it comes to the program accreditation, then we focus on the certain program. But of course, during the program visit, we also meet with the DIO. And as you know, the DIO is responsible for different program directors. So we meet the DIO also to ensure the commitment of the DIO and JAMIC committee for that specific program. Those comments I just provided based on the questions I have seen. Thank you, Dr.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sheikh. I see Now, there are many questions here related to the forms. I'd like to apologize. It looks like the link that we have sent, the evaluation link is not working for some of the attendees. That's okay. We will send it to you via email. We do have all your emails, so if you cannot open it now, that's okay. Let me go to see if someone is raising their hand. Mohammed Nassar. Okay, I'm allowed to talk. Go ahead, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. This is Muhannad Nassar from...
Mohammed, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. From the College of Dental Medicine, IDVS of Charge, a part of the endodontic committee, which is the root canal treatment part of dentistry. Thank you for the presentation. My question is that, and excuse me if I missed it during the presentation, is usually with my humble experience with Accreditation Canada and some sort of other accreditation, there is a pre-survey kind of visit for the surveyor that happens a couple of months earlier, where a feedback and some comments are received to the institute or the program. And then the final kind of survey happens later. Is there any plan for the NIHS to do such a type of survey, or it's only one visit that happens on several days or one day only?
Well, again, thank you, Dr. Mohammed. A very good question, and we could do it in specific cases, but most of the time we go and visit the institution. We have the number of institutions available in UAE are not many, and we're always happy to go there, give them an orientation, demonstrate to them and show them what are the process. Then we ask them to apply. We study the applications. Most of the time, we don't go directly. There will be always a review of the documents. We ask them to upload certain documents. Then we sit with the surveyors ahead of time, most of the time like a week or 2 weeks before the site visit, which allow the surveyors to understand what are the strengths and the weaknesses, so that when they visit the institution, they can just concentrate on the areas that were not clear from the online submission. So I hope that is answering your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Salman, Hassan Yasin, go ahead.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, Dr. Muhammad, Dr. Al-Sheikh. Thank you very much for these informative lectures. Actually, my question is a bit away from the theme of the meeting and the lecture. I just want to clarify, Dr. Muhammad, you know probably that there are other fellowship programs actually in the country, like in Dubai. There are many fellowship programs which belong to the medical education department, which belongs to DHA, Dubai Health Authority. So my question, the graduates of these fellowship programs, do you think that in the future they can apply for the Emirati board and be exempted from some requirements to finally get the final certificate? Like, for example, what happens with some regional boards, if the candidate has, for example, a Jordanian board, this candidate is exempted from exam part 1, and then he can apply for the Arab board to get the Arab board certificate, something like that. So do you think that there is some, is there an area of, I mean, cooperation between these programs in the future?
Well, a very good question. So we are in a state of improving quality of education. And I'd like to change the mentality here. We're not about examination. and certification only. So basically, what we need to see and ensure are not the residents passing the exam, because the exam is one, I would say, milestone toward their certification, but we would like to ensure that they are competent trainees who can now work independently and serve the community. And it would be very difficult to know this if the program is not accredited by the National Institution for Health Specialty. So it's all about, let's all unify our training and get up with the training quality, with the process, and then we can talk about certification and different pathway of certification, which will come later on, but we're not on that stage yet.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, very clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. So anyone else here? محمد هيفا عمر أبو سعدة. تفضل دكتور عمر. Please unmute. عليكم السلام. مرحبا دكتور.
الله يعطيك العافية جميعا.
الله يعافيك.
Much Dr. Muhammad for this very informative session. You did answer Bashin my question with just mentioned to my colleague, or answered that to my colleague question. Actually, as was trained in Canada and was previously trained in Jordan, and I have the Jordanian board and Arabic board pediatrics and the Canadian boards pediatrics and ethology. Now I have actually a comment and question, and actually I think this is the NIHS and the Emirati board is very great step for the Emirati community. But I think this at the same time is a serious step, because we have, as you just mentioned, we have to move from the mentality of time-based training for both the trainees and also the trainers, from the time-based to the competency-based. So it's very important that we graduate very competent graduates. And, you know, currently is a lot of fellows, residents, they are, beside the residency and fellowship, they are going for some other exams or doing MRCBCH, which is at DOH, for example, it's tier 3. So I think we should control all this training process to assure that they really will be focusing on the NHS training process and the Emiratization or Emirati board to graduate very competent graduates. And the second thing for this is what I noticed, for example, when I did the accreditation SGME, that there are a lot of standards. They are excellent, but some of the standards, especially with the fellowship, for example, to give the full autonomy and full control of the program director, including the time needed truly for the program director to fully control the residency of, especially for the fellowship, is only relatively in paper. So I hope that the NIHS will control or will observe the institutions that truly will give the needed time for the program leaders, for the program director, for asset program director, and the full autonomy to control and to run the residency and fellowship programs as what the NIHS wants regarding the standards, which is moving to competency-based and entrustable professional activity. So I hope that we have strong input from the NIHS for this question of these requests.
Well, thank you, Dr. Omar. So a reminder that the National Institute for Health Specialty is an accreditation body. We do not run the program, and we entrust you as a program director, Dr. Omar, that you will monitor all your residents and you will not sign off on any of them to sit for the exam unless if they are competent. And the residents or the fellow should not be promoted from juniors to senior unless if they are, again, competent at the level that allow them to go to the next step. So I always trust here that it's a two-way. The accreditation body is mandating standards and mandating a promotion criteria and mandating the competencies. By the end of the day, the decision is the clinical competency committee within your program who should carefully identify any weak residents or fellow and ensure that they are not moving to the next step unless if they are going through an extra training, okay, maybe an extra year or two before they sit for the exam. Because one of the things that we will mandate is that you will have to sign up a letter stating that the residents are competent and they can now work independently before they sit for the examination. I hope I answered your question, Dr. Ahmed.
I don't know, can you still hear me, Dr. Muhammad?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And actually, alhamdulillah, that's what we are doing now. But the difference that currently our graduates will apply for mainly the Arab board, which is according to, for example, DUH, it is tier 2 in UAE. So they are really competent, they are very good. But the difference from the Emirati board is tier 1 versus tier 2. And we are going now to the EBA and the competency-based. So we need more training for the trainers, more training for the trainees for this change. Even for, we are now going in Saha toward also the Royal College of Physicians of Surgeons accreditation process, and they are talking about competency-based by design, which needs more training. So this is the first one, which is, I totally agree with you. And actually, I'm very proud of our graduates in pediatrics and neonatology. My point here that I think there is more pressure on the programs, institutions, and NIHS moving from a certificate, which is our board from tier 2, to a certificate, which is the Emirati board tier 1, which, because you know, tier 1 will be independent from the day 1 after getting the certificate.
Well, clearly there are more efforts from both sides, and especially from your side. And we, again, this is why, and I think you were part of the neonatology scientific committee, and you've seen how it was drafted, how the requirements are. And I hope we'll see graduates from your program and any other accredited program that are, again, fit for practice.
Thank you. The second question, can the NIHS observe the institutions to be sure that will provide the program directors, assistant program directors, the dedicated time for running the programs?
Yes, and this is again part of our survey that we will be sending biannually to all accredited programs to ensure the maintenance of accreditation. And again, if the program director or the residents or the faculty are having issues, they could mention it there, and we can always come up and do a site visit to ensure the adherence with our standards.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mekani.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Okay. So I have here, so Amar, Dr. Sarah, I think you did. Well, Mohammed, Haifa, Salman, Nawal. Dr. Nawal, تفضلي. Allowed to talk. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Nawal.
Thank you very much for this presentation. You talked about the interview of the trainee and indiscreet to comment on the program if it is negative. This could be easy when you have a big program, and we find it difficult with the small size program because it is like a program of 6 trainees. How we can be discreet how they be discreet, because I face it now. Like if I get an evaluation of the staff, for example, I cannot get the evaluation because they say no, they will know it is me. So at this point, till now, I don't know how to come over it. And even if the program to be evaluated, the small size program, this, I think it will be an issue. The second point, it's about the exams. So if the candidates, the trainee in the one program, they have high pass rate, they consider this program is a good program. So automatically the program, they allow the trainee to sit the exams, even though they are not feeling comfortable that they are competent to sit the exam, just because if they fail and or they did not attend, or the candidate who's supposed to attend become less, they feel like maybe my program is not good. So it become a personal issue. So are we going to face this also?
Well, thank you, Dr. Nawal. I'll answer the second question related to the exam passing marks and rate, and maybe I'll ask Dr. Sheikh to answer the first question related to the small number of trainees. So for your second question, so if you look at the result of the examination, and I can tell you, it does not always reflect the competency of the trainees. And I agree with you, and we should not only depending on the result of the exam. Remember that most of the written examination are only testing the knowledge, and we're not testing many of the other areas, including the clinical skills, including communications, professionalism. And this is where I go back and I ask Dr. Nawal as a program director, if you think that, if you clearly, your clinical competency committee, you think that someone needs remediation, an extra 6 months of training, yes, please do it. And this is a time where you should be, this is a time for them to make a mistake, for them to be supervised before they go and practice in the community. Your first question, Dr. Sheikh, she's asking about the small number of residents and how to interview them.
Of course, when we go to an institution as surveyors, we usually select a sample because evidently the number of faculty and residents are maybe big. But if a program, we have a limited number of residents, then we go for total coverage. If we have a limited number of residents, we meet with all of them if that's fine and if that is possible. And in fact, in some places, that has been supported by technology. For example, we meet with some of them face-to-face, and others can participate through online means. So it is essential wherever possible to meet with all people who are involved, whether faculty or residents. But then for practical reasons, we take a sample. So I hope that addresses your question, Doctora.
Definitely, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let me go back here, the participants, and I see Dr. Suleiman Al-Imran. Tafadhal, Dr. Suleiman.
Hello, Mohammed. Yeah, first, let me thank you for all the progress you're doing. I have been with you from day one. You are proceeding and progressing extremely well. You are the champion behind all this achievement. And just let me, from the deep of my heart, thank you for all what you have done and all the achievement you have done. This is to start with. The second, I think I would remind myself and remind all the audience, this is the time where we really need to set up the standard for the Emirati board. Dr. Mohammed relies a lot on what we do in the training centers. Honestly, we have to revisit what we are doing, at least in most of the programs. There is always space for improvement. There is always way to get things better, especially if we are shooting for tier 1, then we have to be really up to it. and give all what we can do, all our effort in getting the graduate of the standard that Emirati board deserves. That things we are committed to do in Dubai Health Academic Institution or corporations. And I urge everyone who's accredited for Emirati board is to do the effort in the kitchen and the way they prepare their residents before they set for the exams. This is my advice. And once the reputation is labeled for the Emirati board, it's the one. So first impression usually is the last impression. So let's just put this one in our mind and work toward it and work toward making the first impression the best impression. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman, for the nice words. This is all I always say, tawfiq min Allah. And also, this is a teamwork. I'm really happy and honored that I have a very excellent board of director, advisory committee, and 300 members in the different scientific committees who are working toward the improvement of the quality of training in UAE. So everyone, I'd like to thank you